Good morning, everybody. How are you doing today? I guess so too, yes. How was the camp so far?
Good.
Did you have enough cheese?
Never enough cheese.
Yeah. That's the answer, that's the answer. So, welcome to our talk. We want to talk about the current state of the Drupal Admin UI redesign. So, I will introduce myself. So I'm Sascha, I work at Unic. As a designer, I'm Sascha Ecki at all social media, so you can find me there.
Yeah, I'm Cristina Chumillas. I'm also designer, front-end developer. You can find me as Chumillas on Twitter or Cristina on Drupal.org.
Good. There was a session of Arkita at Drupal Camp Goa. So as you can see, you choose the right place to be here in the snowy, cold Davos, because who wants to be at this place with sand and really nice weather?
I was there.
You were? Okay, damn. So you did both. Well done. First and foremost, the most important things. 0 lines of code today. So if you expect any codes, you're in the wrong session. What we're gonna do for today, what are we talking about today? So first we want to give you like an overview of the initiative. Then we talk about user studies. Then about the Drupal design system, the new admin theme, and then at the end we will cross the border for the new content editor experience.
Okay, so we're going to start with an overview of the initiative, which some of you already asked me about that because it's quite a huge thing and it has several parts. So first, why we are doing all of this? So mainly it's because the Drupal phase, the Drupal administration UI hasn't been changed in years. Actually, we still have the same design that shipped with Drupal 7. So that's why the theme is called 7. So yeah, it's been the same for years. And also, a lot of people are actually asking for that because actually Dries made a blog post about that after asking to several Drupal agency owners. They actually came to several conclusions, and one of them was that the UI looked really outdated, and it's a real pain point to sell actually Drupal because people sees it and it's like, this is a modern thing. They expect something more nowadays. So there's this whole initiative thing, and I will try to explain you a little bit all the parts about it. Well, an overview of all the parts. So today we are here to talk about, this part here. I love this. So, this morning we had a great introduction to this part here. Do you see it? Yeah. So those are the main things that are moving right now. All the stuff happening for preparing the JavaScript. I'm working on the JavaScript application, and we're actually working on the Drupal new design system, which is going to be used both on the new theme called Claro and also on the new JavaScript app. So there are several things happening right now. So both the JavaScript part is working on changes on core. We're working on the new theme for implementing this new design system into core before all the JavaScript app is there. So we are working on the new theme, which is going to be called Claro. But this is not all. We are also conducting some user research, which actually is starting to move forward with several things, like, for example, We maybe add a new role in Drupal Core for content editors, maybe content managers. There's actually an issue on Drupal.org to discuss all that, and there's a forum to gather opinion from the community. We're also talking about the toolbar, and there's a lot of stuff coming from the user research that we've been doing and implementing new things on Drupal Core. So it's more a thing not only about JS and the new design thing, it's also about changing information architecture, UX, and so on. So in the short term, we're planning to update or change the admin UI with this new theme. But in the long term, we're actually working or planning to completely change the admin UI and how it behaves and the menus and so on. So let's go back to this user test or user studies that we've been conducting. So we started with a survey, I would say, almost 1 year ago. We started planning in Nashville. And after that, we launched a huge survey with a lot of answers. After that, it came a card sorting, which we were trying to know the information architecture expected. We're now on the step of conducting comparative studies. And the next step will be testing the wireframes for the new admin UI. So about the survey, the main goal here was knowing what site builders or actually content editors were expecting to improve on the editorial experience. So some of the things that we get from there is, the first one is that they were expecting a more modern looking UI thing. Of course, I think almost everybody thinks like that, but yeah, it was super clear. They also were asking to simplify the editing experience, because we can have super huge forms, and the moment that you start adding paragraphs, you start adding chills to paragraph and more paragraphs, and then, well, it's not about only paragraphs, it's just about the whole experience. It's really complex. It's not all, they didn't ask only things about the admin UI thing, they asked also about having a better media management. Look, please, this is really moving forward on the media initiative. They are making huge steps here. And another thing that actually people asked on this survey is having a configuration more prepared for content editors, so they don't see this huge admin UI, this admin menu prepared for site builders, where the content is mainly in one row, and all the other things like configuration, structure, and these things, it doesn't make sense for a content author. After this survey, we tried this card sorting. The main goal here was to improve the information architecture, to come up with a new menu or something like that gave us some answers about what people was expecting, actually content authors. And this is the result. So if you can see, if not, don't worry, I will do that, which is great. So here you can see a matrix. Mainly what they did is placing items from a menu that they thought that were going to be together. So the result is that we have exactly the same menu that we have right now. The real reason is that we send that to Drupal people. So what is that is a result of having site builders answering as a content authors, and that was not useful at all. So that's something that we learned, And on the new studies, we really need to reach content authors, real content authors, to clients. So we don't have to target the Drupal community. We need to target the real clients there. And that's what we are doing right now. Well, we are starting this, we are planning this comparative study, mainly testing two completely different ways of editing content. One is the WordPress with Gutenberg way, where you actually can move everything up and down, edit in place, and so on. And then you have this Craft CMS way of editing, where you have this preview of whatever you're doing on the form. You can preview it on the right or the left, the right, I think. So we are comparing these two ways of editing content because in Drupal you can have landing pages or these kind of things, which Gutenberg actually is super useful. But what if you have really structured content and you have really fields that you need to get filled? How do you control that with Gutenberg or with inline editing inside what you see is what you get way of editing things? So we really need to give a solution to these two ways of editing content, which both are actually real things on the Drupal ecosystem. And jumping into the Drupal design system, who doesn't know what's a design system? Just to don't, yeah, it's like a Lego where you pick stuff and work. Yeah. So first we started with these concepts. We didn't want to jump directly to let's design buttons. It's an internal joke. We are going to explain that to you. So we started looking for what we want to give, what we want to explain, and what we want to achieve. With this new design system, we just don't want to make something nice. We want something that actually has the same
Principle.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. The same principles as Drupal has. So we started from these things, which mainly come from the Drupal principles also. So they're shared. And after that, we started with the main things. For example, for the typography, we picked a modular scale, which means that each size is going to jump on a specific difference from one to another. We picked a really specific one because we are working on a UI, which means that we really need small changes from labels, for example, and descriptions and so on. So we can jump from 12 and something to 14 to 16. So that's a really important thing. We didn't want a scale for typography made for cool and nice looking reading websites where you really don't have to, you really don't need to have several small pieces of text. Another thing another decision that we made that really at the beginning is that we were going to use system fonts. There are several reasons here. The most important one is that we are not designing something where we need a Drupal brand there. It's actually just a UI to work on content. The most important thing is content. So typography shouldn't be on the way. So this is useful because people is just going to use the font family on their own system. We actually forget about searching typography that also ships with, I don't know, for example, Chinese or these kind of things that we completely forget about it. Also, the accessible colors, it's this blue that you see here, it's been changed like
a lot.
15, 20 times, something like that. So yeah, we've came up to several, we've done several iterations on almost everything. We've got a lot of feedback from Andrew Mapperson, for example, which is great because on early steps we've had some feedback about it. And we are also working on how things should work together with different spaces and so on.
Good. Did you saw that I lied? We showed code. Anyway, so components. What are design components? Components are, like basically in the design system, components is a practice of splitting the user interface into smaller, more or better manageable parts with clear names. So this is an example of some components. So you can see some buttons there. There will be even more buttons later, so we'll get the full view on everything you can imagine a button could look like. And then like we're trying to do like basically taking apart the whole administration UI and putting it together again with components. So components needs to be reusable, right? We want to do something which we can reuse, not even for, or not only for now the redesign of the admin UI, but also in the future. Components can even evolve over time. So basically what we currently do with the new admin theme is we're basically just painting it new, right? So basically like the underlying foundation, like the technology and everything is the same. It's basically just like painting the wall from, I don't know, from white to yellow. But it's just a temporary solution. So this is an example how like a component can evolve. So on the left you can see basically like version 1 which could be implemented. And then on the right you can see a much nicer implementation. So it's an iterative process that we can maybe implement like version A now, and then for the next generation UI we do version B. So as we mentioned it before, there is a story of a button. I think we could fill another talk, or we should do maybe, probably, do a talk about the story of a button. But in a nutshell, we tried a lot of different buttons. I couldn't even find all of them or placing it on this slide. But trust me, there were a lot of different buttons involved. And how many buttons did we design? I don't know.
Probably more than 100.
Yeah. I think I never did so many buttons in all projects I did in my career. But yeah, anyway. So this is the result. So basically this is the new button. This is how it looks. Yeah, but that's not true. Basically it looks like this because we need more than one button, right? We have primary buttons, we have secondary buttons, we have even more, we have danger buttons, all kind of buttons. So as you can see, because we have, or like Drupal has a lot of different buttons, we also need to style them accordingly. So I think this is the part which most of us love, right? Documentation, specification, that's all. That's the thing we do and love working for, right? Yeah. But I mean, it's an important part. So in our design system, or in the Drupal design system, we try to specify everything right on the component-based system. So it could look like this. So this is the progress bar. Just a really, really simple, well, maybe not technically, but like from a design point of view, a simple solution. Then we have a password field, which basically isn't, or technically is not a component because it contains different components, right? So you have a progress bar, you have an input field, you have like a detail or like another component which can or have like content in it. And then we have like a toolbar with specification, which looks really nice, but looks more like this. So basically also like the responsive behavior and also like all the different behaviors, hover states, active states, everything you can imagine is specified in the design system. So When we started on the design, I think we first thought of using Sketch. Who is familiar with Sketch in the room or heard about Sketch? Yeah, a lot of people. So, but the problem with Sketch is it's a single user application, right? And because like our design team is like all over the world, as you saw before, like Archita is like somewhere near Goa, somewhere in India, and then she is in Barcelona, I'm in Zurich, and then we have other people from around the world. So how would this work with Sketch? So like, you know, like sending around design files, maybe not a good solution. So the solution to this was to find another tool which basically allows us to collaborate on a design all together. So this is why we've chosen Figma over Sketch. Here you can see me doing some weird things with my hands, and other people are involved. So basically, this is how the tool looks like. It looks quite familiar to those who ever saw Sketch, right? It just adds another layer of having multiple people, so you can see them here. You have different hats. So multiple people can work in the document. You can leave comments in the design system. So basically, if I design a button, then Cristina can come in and say, did you think about A? And then Archita comes in, did you think about B? And then we screw it and do another button. So this is how it looks. I call it an open design system because basically everybody of us has access to it. So because like Figma is web-based, you just need to have the URL. It's not restricted, so it's open, so everybody can have a look into it. Not everybody is allowed to do changes for reasons, but you still can go in and look at all the components and all the designs and explore it. So it's quite easy. You just
Click that.
remember this link, and then, you know, well, I don't know. Maybe it's easier to use this link. So also in like the Claro, like the new administration UI project on Drupal.org, we have a lot of links to Figma. So if you don't remember this, you can just head over to Drupal.org project Claro, and then from there you will also have access to it. Well, the new admin UI, right? So now we just talked about the design system. It's just designs, but you didn't see something stick together which looks like a design, right? We just saw a button, which is not the fit. Well, maybe we just need to have one button, right? That would be the solution everybody of us wants, right? Just having this single button which does everything. I would be totally sold on this idea. Do you remember that Drupal actually looks like this? I mean, for people who use AppMinimal, do you remember that it actually looks like this? Okay, anyway. So this is how it looks now. So if we go back, you see, it looks quite similar, right? Maybe a bit more modern. So this is the refresh of the admin UI I talked earlier about. So this is not the new or the all-new content editor experience or the new admin UI, which Matt was talking about, the new JavaScript-based backend. It's just like a refreshed theme, which everybody of you can use, even if, you know, you don't have to do anything, you just have to enable it in the end. Or at some point it's enabled by default. So you already heard this name, Claro. So Claro is Spanish for clear, right? Yes. And we choose this name because we wanted to make this new administration UI as simple as it gets to use, right? So like everything you expect from like the 7th theme is still on the same like where it was before. So we didn't change any positioning, any changes on the UI itself. It's just a refresh of the design and not of the functionality. So the part of the functionality will be in a future release, which is more or will be targeted with the new JavaScript-based backend. So this is the node form. Quite simple. Then we have like configure block. So I just show some random designs that you get like an impression how this thing looks. Then we have text formats and editors. So here you can see we have still tables. Yay. You can still drag and drop them. Performance. We're quite familiar with this, right? So you have to clear caches. So this is important to design. And then we have like the new toolbar. So also with some components, there are some limitations because, for example, the toolbar is not part of the 7 theme at all. The toolbar is in core. So we have some stuff which are basically like overlapping to other initiatives or to other like sub-projects. So we're currently trying to figure out how we want to do the toolbar, because if we just change the toolbar in core, it will also have implications for at minimal, for example, right? But if we just theme the toolbar in Claro, you will have another toolbar if you just on the client's page and you're not like in the backend. So basically, if you're just logged in, the toolbar will look different than if you're like in the node form, for example. And we want to have like a seamless design integration. Here another screenshot, so you can see we did a lot more designs. I don't want to bore you with designs because it's a developer conference, right? So you don't care about design, or you shouldn't, because it's not your thing. Boo, sorry. No, I'm just joking, sorry. So another thing we try to do, or basically like in the boundaries we have, because we try to not change any JavaScript with this theme. So basically we just change, or most of the things is just changing CSS. And we still try to do like, or get a better mobile experience, as I mentioned in the boundaries. And then like this can also evolve like over time to do improvements. Then this is really a key part of the new theme. So like accessibility is really important. It's basically like our key focus. We have a lot of people involved like in this initiative. There is like the core maintainer of accessibility, which is really involved in this, and he does review all the things we do. So that means that sometimes we do a lot of iterations until we get to the point where it's okay. Because sometimes you just forget about things, right? So we're in Europe, we don't have right to like RTL languages. And then you just see if, I don't know, like an input field or something looks quite different if you have like RTL, or let's say you have Chinese or whatever language, right? Which is also a part of the accessibility. So I think this is another thing where we did a lot of iterations, which basically I'm talking about like the style of focusing like an element. So basically in a perfect world you would have a distinctive color for focus. So that's what we're currently trying to figure out, to have like a color which can be used for focusing any element on the UI. There is another problem that, like, you need to have enough contrast, right? I mean, it's not a problem if you just have like basically like a white background or a gray background, but then if you have like a button which is blue, you need to have like a spacing in between that like the contrast is still given. So these are some accessibility things you have always to consider. That's quite exciting, right? It's basically the same, it just looks different. So your main question will be, when does this thing ship? When will we see it, right? Well, you did see it, but when can we get our hands on? Well, there will be a test version out in spring. I know it's already spring, so expect late spring. And when will it be in Core? So as an experimental theme, it will be in Drupal Core 8.8. We didn't manage to include it in 8.7, which is a bit a bummer, but it will be in Core most probably in 8.8, which is due in sometime in December, I guess, if I have the timeline. Yeah, I think December. So expect, I mean, you already can use like the test version. We don't call it a beta version, it's a test version. But I mean, with Drupal 8.8, you should be able to just enable it and explore it. You could even maybe use it. So, is that everything we do? Well, there is a new content editor experience coming. So, Matt already talked about like the new React applications, or like the React application. So we did a lot of wireframes to try out. Like Cristina said, we did this study about Craft CMS and also like the WordPress Gutenberg. So we also already did some like smaller prototypes and wireframes to test some ideas out. So as you can see, we just tried to somehow pick the best of all worlds and putting some effort in to do maybe some improvements to concepts which already exist. But this is nothing which is final, so basically it's just in a wireframe state and everything can change over time. So we're just in the early stages of like exploring how this thing could work in the future. So this would be more like Craft CMS, which you have like basically like a left and right view. So on the left you have like a node form, and then on the right you will have like a live preview of the site maybe. So this could be an option. Yes. So here you can see just like on the left side it's more like it goes towards like the WordPress Gutenberg style, and on the right you can see it's the other approach. So basically these are the things we're trying to compare, but it needs a lot of work still in the future to do also like a decision. So this is even more exciting, right? Even if it's not designed yet, but I mean, it looks completely different and it will work completely different. So we try to push this to do like improvements over time. So, as Matt mentioned as well in the morning, we do need more people involved in this. So you should get your hands on. So basically, if you're a designer, if you're a front-end developer, or whatever skills you have, you can approach us, and then we'll find a way to onboard you. There are a lot of things which need to be done in like until this can be shipped, at least for Claro now, and also for the next generation UI. So get in touch with us. So this is a quick overview of like everything which is involved in the initiative. So like the Drupal design system has its own channel which is open in the Drupal Slack. So just head over to Admin UI Design. So you'll see like everything we discuss, except the things we discuss in Figma, will be in there. Then for the UX part, for research and user studies and everything which goes into this pillar is just like the Admin UI channel. Then everything which goes for Claro is as well the Admin UI channel. And everything which is JavaScript, like the React app and the modernization of the whole JavaScript stack, is the JavaScript channel. We have weekly meetings. So on Wednesdays we have meetings about the design system, Claro, and the whole UX part. And then on Mondays, there are they also weekly? I guess so, right? Yeah. So we also have like weekly meetings on Mondays for the whole JavaScript part of the initiative. So, do you have any questions?
Who designed your GIFs?
Sorry?
Who designed your GIFs?
Who?
Clearly.
Yes.
So were all those pages that you showed, were they already, like, are those mock-ups, or are they actually, like, the finished pages in the theme?
They're mock-ups.
Yeah.
Yeah, so mainly right now in Claro, there are several, so we have the issues for all the components, but not all the components have a final design, so it's half implemented. So I think it's, I would say 40% of the components are kind of, at least the smalls are there, but working on it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Are the buttons implemented yet?
No.
Of course not.
What a question.
So sad.
Yes.
So, I'm a bit confused. So is Claro going to be implemented in Twig and React, or only
No.
one of them?
No.
Or what's the...
Only Twig.
Yes.
So it's mainly the new 7.
Okay.
So the same designs are going to be used on the React tab.
Okay.
What it means is that we're going to use the same buttons, for example, but they will come from a different part. So we are starting right now to map all the components for the React, for the creating the library for the components and so on, with the same designs, but completely different development.
Yeah, so basically like the design system will be used also for the React app. But this is just like, because this requires a lot of time and it will be just like, I don't know, out in years, I guess. So we wanted to do something which like all of you can use earlier. So that's why this Claro theme.
But the idea is that if we then, let's say we switch over to the React, there is not a completely different experience.
Yes, so one key point that we didn't mention is that at the beginning we decided that it was interesting and needed to have this new Claro or this redesign for 7, because we were starting to implement these React pages one by one, and then you switch between pages, and then you went to the edit form and you have the new React theme. Then you go to configuration, for example, and then you have 7, which is like, so that's one of the main reasons, and also because you want to sell something a little bit nicer also. But yeah, that's one of the reasons there.
Yes?
I'm curious about when you're talking about Figma, and in the slide it looks like you have the video of the people working.
Yeah, the video is not part of the design tool.
That's not part of Figma. No, I know it's not part of the design. Is it part of Figma, or is that a...
No.
Okay, it's just... But anyway, my real question is, how often do you work together in Figma? How do you schedule that? Do you have like a fixed time that everybody comes in, or just... I don't know if that question's making sense.
It depends.
Well, yeah, I guess the answer would be it depends. I mean,
All the time.
Yeah.
most of the time it's like in free time, it can be, I don't know, like that. Sometimes we cross each other, sometimes you don't see anybody in the design.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I was just wondering if you just all jumped in whenever, or if sometimes you said, "Hey, let's all get together."
We can do a demo.
We can do a demo if we still have time. That you see like how this works and what you can do. Yeah, you can stalk people in this.
Yeah,
tool.
you can see someone just working on buttons. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're bored and want to see buttons, like somebody working on buttons, join us.
I'm doing it all in this community.
Any other questions? No? Yes?
How is the theme built, like with Times Max CSS or plain CSS? How is the...
Post CSS right now. So yeah, it's we are creating Lauri and other people are working on that. They decided that it made more sense to start working, for example, with variables for CSS, which is not supported for, well, in Internet Explorer still nowadays. We are talking about it, but yeah. So we needed to we wanted to work with variables and this kind of, I don't know, new stuff that we have been using for years now. So post-CSS is the way of. Right now, we don't. So the version that we're working right now for Claro, it doesn't ship with the final CSS. So you have to. It's yarn. You have to. Yeah.
You have to compile it.
Yeah. But yeah. So mainly we have a process there to get the CSS. It ships with CSS, but you can work with modern properties.
Yeah.
But not SAS or anything like that. Anything else?
Any more questions?
Anybody interested on seeing Figma? Or
Maybe just as a follow-up to Steve's question, what I've seen is that you have the regular meetings where you discuss.
Yes.
But maybe it's not what you asked for, it's more what you asked for, I think, is like really work together and need to discuss stuff.
Yeah, I think that's helping me ask the question. Yeah, I noticed that you have the regular meetings, and then I was also wondering if you also plan time to regularly work together, or if it was just more ad hoc.
No,
yes.
the second one, it's more ad hoc. But I mean, if we have the regular meetings, like everybody has the design tool open, and then we discuss, like in the design tool, like different components or to do decisions and stuff.
Yeah, we usually try more to use these meetings to actually review work and to actually share opinions and something like that. Because if you really want to discuss something, you can just put a comment on Figma.
Yeah.
You really don't have to be there to
Yeah.
work on something. That's a cool thing on that.
Okay. Yeah,
That's-
that's really good.
And also the meetings, both on JavaScript and the Admin UI, on both channels. The two meetings that we have weekly, both are written. We don't have like video calls, so everybody can just go at the same, just watch what's going on there or read it later. Or
In the limits of Slack. So
yeah.
at some point it just disappears because of the limitation of the the Drupal Slack. But yeah, I mean, if you have like the regular meetings, you could call it like paired designing, because it's basically like, yeah. Yes.
Another thing, I don't like to be too negative, but it looks like we're already far behind with the design and stuff. And if I hear now like it goes years until we have a React design. So as soon as our React design for Drupal will come out, all this wave of React and fancy thing is already over, and there's something new coming. So,
Are you talking about React or about the design?
a bit of both. It just seems to me that we're not really catching up with the market and the fancy things that are on the market. With all
I really like that you say that. It's a really good point. And it's the history of Drupal. People just contribute their own time. So
it's a question of resources.
mainly, yeah. Actually, we are actively. Well, we are from next week. We are going to start trying to get more designers involved because it's only the four of us. Sometimes someone else comes, but we don't have. Not everybody has time to work on that. So people from Claro are catching up with the development. They need more components. So mainly, what we need is people that actually have time to follow what's going on and to work on that. Because as you can see on the slide about the whole initiative, to know what's going on there, you need hours to catch up with everything. And also we don't have time. That's a really bad thing that we're not doing it. It's that we're working on it, but we are not properly explaining what we are doing. So we probably don't get more people involved because we are not explaining it. The problem is that to learn everything, you will need a lot of time. To catch up, you will need a lot of time. So if you're expecting to contribute, the problem is that you probably, with 1 hour per week, it's not going to be enough. Because 1 hour is what you're going to need to catch up with what's have been happening. So we really need people that can invest time on this. So it would be great to have companies sponsoring time from front ends or designers or I don't know.
Yeah.
Can I quickly just, then I give it over to, the intent was not to blame that it's too slow or something like that. It's just that I have my editors every day in my neck like, well, this UI looks like terrible and just please have a look at Gutenberg and whatever else.
Yeah.
If I not now on Monday I come back and tell, no problem, in like 2 or 3 years perhaps I've got something for you.
So that's a real thing, and that's a real danger that we have there if we don't catch up. We don't have like 10 years to do that. To do this, we don't have 10 years, because in 10 years Drupal is not going to be there if we don't do that. But I mean, not only the Admin UI, there are a lot of things that needs to be improved, but it's a really important thing.
I mean, I also agree that, I also agree that it might not be the nicest and fanciest thing you will ever see, but the problem is that we, as I mentioned before, like a key part of this redesign is not that it's fancy, it's that it's accessible for everybody. So this has some limitations to the design, but I think it's an important key factor. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Maybe to jump in, I also think like that's just like the base updating of every individual page of Drupal. There are, like we at Amaze Labs, we focus on just the editor experience. So we have a project where we focus on just the editor thingy. We don't care about the configuration page and all that other stuff.
Yeah,
and I think editor does. Yes, and I think that's what you're referring to. That does not try to really change too much about the editor experience.
Exactly.
And I know there are other people also working specifically on the editor experience itself. So I think at the end, I wouldn't tell them 2 or 3 years. It's just not one single project that will solve it all. So that will make the Admin UI in general much better. And then there will be other tools that make the editor experience.
I also think that the editor experience, perhaps these 2 wireframes about the craft approach and the Gutenberg approach, these would change.
That's a key point.
By the way, if you want to have like the Gutenberg like experience, there is a Drupal project, which is already working quite good. So if you want to give your your editors the Gutenberg experience, you can install the module and then go for it.
Of your forms, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Any other questions, or should we do like a quick demo of how Figma looks? Is anybody interested in that?
Next session geht in 10 Minuten los.
Okay, wir machen 10 minutes. So as you can see, I just did hide all the unnecessary stuff here that you can see, like forms or like designs. So basically, if I work on something here, which is like sticking together components for the design, you can now see Cristina is also, I can just do stuff here and she can do stuff, or I can just move the stuff away. If I see she's in, I can just, make her life a bit harder. No, I'm just joking. No, I mean, it's really cool because let's say we would have an issue with like this component. So here I could just jump into like commenting mode. So I can just place a comment here saying, well, I have another idea. Ooh, typo. So now I place this here, right? And then like somebody else will see or will get like a notification that I just did like a comment in the design system and can reply. So we also have, or we can have like discussions or asking questions about like newly designed components, which if they're not finished, so we have like you know, like this example page where we try out quite a lot of things. And so if I design like a new component and I want to give, or I want to have feedback, I can just leave a comment and mention like maybe Cristina and saying, hey, maybe do you have time, can you review this component, what do you think? And then we have like a quick iteration, or also like to discuss something which can also be outside of the regular meetings, which is really cool. So, yeah. Cool. I think now time is up. So thank you, everybody. Couldn't show the slide.